A possible war between the United States and Iran has long been discussed as one of the most dangerous scenarios in international politics. Although these two countries have never officially declared war on each other, the tension between them has remained constantly high. Sanctions, military threats, covert operations, and regional clashes keep this confrontation just one step away from an open conflict. The main question is, if a war between the United States and Iran were to break out, how prepared would the world be for it? At the core of this potential war lies several key causes. The first and most critical issue is Iran's nuclear program. The United States and its allies argue that this program is not purely peaceful and could eventually be turned into nuclear weapons. Iran firmly denies these claims and insists that its nuclear activities are for energy and scientific purposes only. Another major factor is the heavy economic sanctions imposed by the United States on Iran. These sanctions weaken Iran's economy, but at the same time push Tehran toward a more confrontational stance. A third important element is the Israel factor. Israel sees Iran as a direct threat to its existence and therefore wants the United States firmly on its side in any potential conflict. A fourth and extremely sensitive issue is the Strait of Hormuz. A significant portion of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow passage, and Iran holds considerable influence in this area. Such a war could begin through several different scenarios. One of the most likely possibilities is a U.S. airstrike on Iran's nuclear facilities. Such an attack could cause massive damage in a short period of time, but it is unlikely that Iran would remain passive. Iran could respond with ballistic missiles, drones, and naval attacks, and might attempt to block the Strait of Hormuz. Another scenario involves an accidental spark. An attack on a U.S. military ship or an allied base in the Gulf could quickly spiral into a full-scale war. A third scenario is a direct confrontation between Israel and Iran, in which the United States could become involved either indirectly or directly. From a military perspective, the United States possesses the most powerful armed forces in the world. Advanced technology, air superiority, satellite systems, and cyber warfare capabilities give the U.S. a clear advantage. Iran, however, relies on a very different strategy. Its strength lies mainly in asymmetric warfare. Missile arsenals, fast attack boats, drones, and allied proxy groups across the region are Iran's primary tools. For this reason, while the United States may be militarily superior, Iran is far from an easy opponent to defeat. A war of this kind could completely reshape the Middle East. Iran's influence in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen could rapidly expand the conflict. Attacks by Hezbollah on Israel, strikes against U.S. bases in Iraq, and missiles launched from Yemen would ignite the entire region. Israel would become a direct target, and the conflict would no longer be limited to just two countries. As a result, millions of people could be forced to flee their homes, creating a new wave of refugees. The impact of such a war on the global economy might be the most frightening consequence of all. Any disruption or blockade in the Strait of Hormuz would cause oil prices to surge dramatically. Rising energy prices would accelerate global inflation, and countries in Europe and Asia would face severe energy crises. Even a war lasting only a few weeks could inflict trillions of dollars in damage on the global economy. The stance of major international powers would also play a crucial role in shaping the conflict. Russia might attempt to exploit the situation for geopolitical advantage. China would likely focus on protecting its economic interests and energy security. NATO countries would probably provide political and technical support to the United States while avoiding direct involvement in combat. Nevertheless, a further escalation of tensions would revive fears of a Third World War. The risk of nuclear war, while relatively low, cannot be entirely dismissed. Iran does not officially possess nuclear weapons, but if the conflict were to spiral out of control, the consequences could be extremely dangerous. The greatest threat lies precisely here. Once such a process begins, no one can be certain where it will end. The most realistic outcome, therefore, is a short but extremely destructive war. The United States might achieve military superiority, but at a very high cost. Iran could be weakened, yet not completely collapse. The Middle East would become even more unstable, and the effects of this conflict could last for years. In the end, the most important unanswered question remains this: would such a war stay confined to the Middle East, or would it turn into a global crisis that affects the entire world?